I believe my foreign policy is very traditional American, very constitutional. It follows the lines of the Founding Fathers, and actually follows the line of much of what Republicans talked about for many, many years. And even recently, just think, in the year 2000, I was sort of hopeful in 2000 because many of us in Congress and many Republicans strongly objected to what Clinton was doing. In fact, he went into Bosnia without a declaration of war. Somalia, nation building. So what was our platform in the year 2000? No nation building, no policing the world. Stay out of the internal affairs of these other nations. And that was very encouraging to me. And yet, we didn't follow those promises. We did not live up to those promises. The promises of the campaign, nor what is implied in the Constitution, nor have we accepted the advice of the founders. I was called to military duty in 1962 during the Cuban crisis, and I ended up being in the Air Force for 5 years. At that time, the Soviets had 40,000 nuclear weapons and intercontinental missiles, and they did have nuclear weapons in Cuba, 90 miles off our shore. Very dangerous times. And what did Kennedy do? He stood firm. He said, "We'll not have it. You will get rid of those missiles." At the same time, he calls up Khrushchev and said, "Let's work this out." Khrushchev said, "Well, you have them in our backyard. You have them in Turkey." So Kennedy says, "All right, a deal. I'll take them out of Turkey. You take them out of Cuba." Now, that ended the great threat. Now, what was so terrible about that? They had to keep that secret for a long time because it meant that Kennedy had wimped out. Yet he saved probably a nuclear holocaust from doing this. What did Reagan do when he said, "Gorbachev, tear down this wall"? The next week, he negotiated a treaty with them on nuclear weapons. And the day after Khrushchev came over here and banged his shoe on the desk and said, "We'll bury you," he drove around in a car, a convertible, with no protection with our president through Washington, D.C. And now they say we're not supposed to talk to the Iranians? I mean, where's our common sense? It is estimated now that our foreign policy and our foreign adventurism and our presence around the world, our empire, is costing us nearly $1 trillion every year. So you can save hundreds of billions of dollars by changing our attitude about our responsibilities. First thing we could do, very simply, just bring all the troops home. Yeah. You mean you bring all the troops home from the Middle East? And what would happen? What about our friends? Who are we going to support? You know, we support Israel, and we prop up Arab governments like Saudi government. We've been propping up and protecting a Saudi dictatorship since World War II. And you know, they're not exactly friendly to Christians, and they're not exactly friendly to civil liberties. And yet we prop them up and guarantee their protection, and they guarantee us oil, and they try to keep the oil prices down, and they have promised to invest their dollars back here, and it's been a friendly relationship, except things are getting pretty rocky right now. It's either you do it our way or we'll bomb you, or if you do it our way, we'll subsidize you. We'll give you foreign aid. The third way is just be friends with everybody. Just talk to people. Just negotiate. Just have trade with people. Let people travel. Instead of 40 years of sanctions on Cuba, which has done nothing to get rid of Castro, what about allowing our people to trade with Cuba and travel to Cuba? We're not even allowed to travel to Cuba. Sanctions are actually an act of war. And just yesterday, new sanctions put on the next country that we're getting ready to attack. We have to put on sanctions. Even when we talk with our allies, say, don't do it, don't do it. Talk to the UN, don't do it, don't do it. But here we are putting sanctions on Iran. We are doing the same thing to Iran right now that led up to our invasion of Iraq. We need a policy that would be implemented immediately, quickly, right away, so we don't go to bombing and invading Iran. We don't need that.
I don't have to take a position, you know, on what people do. But divestiture is, I think it's a great way to implement policy, because it's not through force, it's not through the government, it's not through intimidation, it's not through sanctions, it's not through subsidies. And it's private, and people say that if they're doing the wrong thing, put pressure on them. And my argument there would be always to keep that legal, to allow people to do that. So I think you can bring about, that's one way you could bring about changes in a more peaceful way than threatening people. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But if you went and said, treat Israel, like a grown-up, and don't treat them like a third world nation. Don't assume that they are not smart enough to take care of their own country. Don't assume that they can't exist, without subsidies. You give them subsidies, they might not work as hard as they would, and they may have to become more capitalistic. So yes, as long as you're urging your congressman to do the right thing, I would say that's fine. Take away. At the same time, it isn't one-sided. I don't want to guarantee the puppet government of Saudi Arabia. That's another thorn in the side of the people in the Middle East. Especially people like Osama bin Laden. It was his country, Saudi Arabia. Since Roosevelt started in World War II, we guaranteed the security, and we guaranteed their kingdoms. They guaranteed our oil, and that they would launder their dollars back to us. And it was a dollar agreement that they would back the dollar sort of subtly by oil. We'll protect you. You sell us the oil, keep the oil price down, and that's worked for a long time. But it's coming to an end. Nobody talks about Colombia. It's amazing. Billions of dollars are spent down there, and there was some skirmish down there the other day, and I thought to myself, there was some shooting and killing. I said, that's us. It's our weapons, and we're supporting one faction that killed insurgents. One's insurgents, the other one's somebody else's freedom fighter. Well, it was our money that was involved there. But those are the kind of people who influence foreign policy in a negative way. So.
Well, then let's say you win. What's your first action as president?
First action?
First action.
Where you have the most authority is on your commander-in-chief of the military, not commander-in-chief of the people. You're commander-in-chief of the military, and you can design foreign policy, and you could change the world within weeks about just changing attitudes, saying that we're backing our Navy off, removing the sanctions on Iran. We'll talk to you. We've talked to the Soviets. You guys aren't any more threatening to me than the Soviets were. And bring the troops home from Iraq. Give them a motivation to start talking to each other. The world would change. I'll bet oil would drop $20 a barrel.
And I think it's the morally correct position. I think it's the constitutional position. I believe that foreign policy we have today weakens us internationally. I think our national defense is weaker. If we understand the motivation behind those who would be willing to commit suicide and kill us here, we realize that occupation of foreign countries, foreign Muslim country, Arab country, is a strong motivation. But we can't get hysterical about it and think that the war against terrorism is perpetual and they're pervasive and they're around every single corner, and that we are willing to sacrifice our liberties. Now we're at a point where the sacrifice of our liberties is a greater threat to us than worrying about the next terrorist attack. But we have to understand motivation. There is no evidence whatsoever that they come and they want to kill us because we're rich and free. That is not the reason whatsoever. The evidence is overwhelming that it's occupation that counts. I think we treat Israel like a third world country, and that they're not capable of taking care of themselves. We as American taxpayers are obligated to send them $3 to $4 billion every year. Well, why is that? I mean, they're wealthy and they're capable, but they have less incentive to take care of themselves. If we tax our people further in putting us into debt, I mean, they could very easily take care of themselves. Besides, Israel is powerful. They're not going to be attacked by Iran. Let me tell you that. That is not going to happen. Whether Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. The argument is, will they have it in 2 years, 4 years, or 10 years? And we don't even know if that's really what they want. They have a right under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty to have peaceful use of nuclear power. And right now, believe it or not, in spite of what you read, they are actually talking to UN inspectors.